If you're new in town or just new to this whole podcast thing, you're tuning in to Law by Night, the podcast that discusses all things vampiric with no fear of breaching the masquerade. In this episode, we shall review the Encyclopedia Vampirica, a sourcebook for Vampire the Masquerade. I shall present my thoughts and opinions on its presentation and mechanics to help you better decide whether this is the sourcebook for you. As of the writing of this podcast episode, which is some 4 months prior to the actual release of the episode proper, I have started exploring the sad and surprisingly hopeful world of Wraith the Oblivion. There is a lot to digest and interpret, all through the eyes of a brand new narrator which requires a new way of thinking and writing. In short, this shit takes time, but work is in progress. A lot of reading is needed, and more books have to be purchased, which is always fun. It's no cheap endeavour, mind you, so it is fortunate that I am currently in the position to do this once every blue moon. The same can be said for Vampire the Masquerade, which I have spent a frightening amount of money during the duration of this podcast existence. I sometimes get asked by listeners of the podcast and the community in general which books they should get if they want a quick crash course on the law. One book I constantly forget to mention is the topic of tonight's episode, the Encyclopedia Vampirica, a book that was originally released for German audiences that would later get an official English translation by the big boys and girls at White Wolf Publishing. But before we dive into the book review proper, here are the rules to the Law by Night book reviews. I will explore snippets of the lore, mechanics and rules found within the tome. I will look as to how they are presented and how easily they are conveyed to new and old players alike. As this is a review written and presented by me, all thoughts and opinions are my own, so if you disagree with something I have said, that is totally fine. It does not mean that you're right and I am wrong and vice versa. As with my previous book reviews, I will start at the very beginning, which is the physical book itself, which currently sits nicely upon my lap. Now, this is the first book review I have done where I have a soft cover rather than a hard copy, so I can't copy and paste the same part of my previous script this time. I am aware that the original copy is a gorgeous hardback book with a shiny silver font and unk, reminding me of my deluxe edition of Mind's Eye Theatre Vampire the Masquerade LARP book, which is the first book I reviewed on the podcast. This reprint from DriveThruRPG, however, lacks such fancy shininess, just a barely adequate copy and paste of the original file onto the smooth matte black cover. The quality of the book itself in terms of its material is an interesting thing to dissect. It is a deceptively large A4 sized book, whose pages have probably one of the most gorgeous designs of any Vampire the Masquerade book to date. It emulates a Vampire the Dark Ages aesthetic, with the ye old Book of Nod logos in the top corners, with the gorgeous frame printed on these near black pages, which also has a parchment-like feel. Now, whether that is consistent throughout the DriveThruRPG and original copies, or whether that is just a DriveThruRPG quirk, for lack of a better term, is unknown to me. The Encyclopedia Vampirica was released on the 15th of July 2002, right at the tail end of the original line, which was the end of the revised edition material, so this book is littered with art found across the 11 years that Vampire the Masquerade had been running at that point. I don't think I need to tell you how much I love this, despite the fact that some of the art did not scan as nicely as others. I am not so fond of the 2nd edition Chicago by Night portraits and others in this style, for they seem a bit too cartoonish for my personal tastes, but other than that, I adore just how gorgeous this book is. There are even some pieces exclusive to this book to look out for as well. When you open the book, you are greeted by a set of barely legible letters that detail the canonical existence of the Encyclopedia Vampirica. You are told how to use and understand how the Encyclopedia Vampirica shorthands and notes work before being thrust into the book proper, which immediately presents the only problem one must face when presenting this book. How does one review an encyclopedia? If it wasn't apparent, an Encyclopedia Vampirica is a Vampire the Masquerade encyclopedia containing names, places, and unique items found throughout the game's metaplot, in addition to timelines of certain cities in Vampire the Masquerade such as Frankfurt and Transylvania. But it isn't just that, for the sides of most pages contain personal comments written by various Cainite scholars, none of which are named, but all of which contributed to the formation of the book, such as Bindusara and Aristotle Deloriant. They are interesting to read, acting as a constant reminder that the lore in Vampire the Masquerade is very loose and not always reliable, which is just what you want to see in an encyclopedia. Irony aside, there are other goodies to be found here as well, such as a beautiful breaking down of the Camarilla traditions. The book ends with biographies of well-known and established lore hunters in Vampire the Masquerade, the other authors of this book, such as Lucita de Aragon and Ailsing Sturbridge, and some lost Book of Nod fragments provided by Beckett, in addition to his own notes on them, such in a similar fashion found in the Book of Nod itself. So the question you are probably asking yourself right about now is whether you should buy this book based on the extremely little information I've provided for you. Well, if you are running a chronicle and run out of steam, buy this book. If you want to include some neat little lore tidbits and get fed up of using the White Wolf wiki, buy this book. If you are trying to remember that character your player is a descendant of and don't know how to incorporate this progenitor into your session, buy this book. And if you love Vampire the Masquerade lore but do not have lots of money to spend on PDFs and/or physical books, you should buy the Encyclopedia Vampirica. Any ST worth their salt will have this book at arm's reach to use at dramatically appropriate moments, whether it's to call upon a character or item at a drop of a hat, or as an actual item in-game that the players have to locate to prevent a breach in the Masquerade. You can have that plot idea for free. Despite being a literal encyclopedia for Vampire the Masquerade fans, the writers for this book have somehow managed to make one of the driest and bland forms of literature into an engaging work that is easy for people to use in most sessions of Vampire the Masquerade. Good on you, White Wolf. Good on ya. Now, for those of you who are new to the Lore by Night brand and the reviews I occasionally do, I do not do out of 10 scores because they are subjectively pointless. One person's 10 out of 10 is another's 3 out of 5 stars, which is another's minus 42 out of 100. So, I shall rate this book Giant's Blood out of 10, as that is just as helpful as a proper out of 10 score. To be kept updated, follow the Lore by Night VDM Twitter and Instagram pages to find out when we upload each episode. You can also find out by subscribing to the YouTube channel and clicking on the little bell, as you'll be immediately notified when the latest episode is live. Until next time, farewell.